Hello, Graham from ArionGames here, and I thought I'd record a video to finish off the Crown and Dragon Skirmish Kickstarter that is still running for another few days. The weekend just gone, my gaming group of almost 40 years vintage met up here for a game of Crown and Dragon RPG mixed in with some of the skirmish game. We used the skirmish games to fight the larger battles, and we used effectively a role-playing session to fight the smaller battles and do the role-playing. And it went very, very, very well. The first session we did a bit of role-playing, and then we did about a 6 or 7 hour skirmish. It was quite a long battle. There were 3 separate phases to it, and actually there were probably 3 separate skirmishes in there, all tacked together. And it went very, very well indeed. The follow-up on Sunday morning was another 3 or 4 hour battle. It was a bit simpler, a bit more straightforward, but again it went extremely well. Now, before I go into some of the details, the end of our weekend was punctuated by fairly frequent interruptions from my 11-year-old son, who kept poking his head around the door and asking, were we finished yet? Because he wanted to clear the table so that he could set up his own battle, and that is what is still set up on the table behind me. So he set up his own battle and then spent several hours playing through both sides of that using the skirmish rules. Now, he does know the rules, he's been helping me play test them, but I think it does go to show that even an 11-year-old can actually run both sides of a skirmish battle simultaneously quite easily. So the rules are very, very fast and quite easy to learn. Now, on the other side of that, on my gaming group, at least 2 players are regular war gamers, skirmish gamers, and have been for 20, 30 plus years. So it also shows that these are not sort of lightweight rules. These are not rules that are very, very basic. They've got depth to them, as would be expected from effectively a role-playing rule set. And what worked really, really, really well was the complexity of the role-playing game. So the edges you get in Savage Worlds, the different skills, means that you can customize units. So the battle on the Sunday was effectively a free-form force on their side. The battle on the Saturday was them with predetermined units fighting against predetermined enemy at predetermined points. So that was a scenario skirmish. But on the Sunday, it was them with 1,000 points to spend against an opposing force that was smaller than them to begin with, but each round had an additional set of reinforcements, a random set of reinforcements. Now, before we started the Sunday skirmish, I had to nip off to do some rugby coaching for an hour, and that actually worked quite well because they had the basic stats for Dragon Browns, and they were commanding a force of Dragon Browns on the wing of a big battle. So they had 1,000 points to spend. So Dragon Browns have predetermined novice, seasoned and veteran characteristics, stats, skills, edges, equipment, etc. They then customize those, so each of those has a different points value, and they customize those by applying the skirmisher package to some of them, the grenadier package to some of them. They also had a Dragon Brown lieutenant and a Dragon Brown skirmisher captain as well to customize there. And then they further added in musicians to some units. They further added in a standard to a unit, battle standard. So by mixing these, they were able to then create their own customized force. And suffice to say that the hour or so I was gone at rugby was used pretty intensively for them to discuss, rediscuss, design, redesign their force. And this worked really well. They had an excellent set of units. They had some skirmishers which occupied the hill in the middle of the battlefield. They had some grenadiers that pushed up the right hand side, and then they had some standard Dragon Brown units who tried to defend a hedge and shallow river. And they were initially threatened by some cavalry that came charging round the other hill and the building, but they dealt with those, and they were somewhat wary of said cavalry, because in the scenario battle on the Saturday, they'd pushed past the first two objectives and they were in the process of trying to secure the third objective when some hidden cavalry emerged from behind the church and obliterated one of their units. So they were very wary of those cavalry, and they designed their second force to deal with any cavalry that would come in. And of course all of this was backed up by their role-playing characters, and their role-playing characters each have another extra with them. So they had their standard units, plus they had the four of them, and we had a mummer, we had an officer, we had a hand-to-hand specialist who was pretty devastating in both battles, although in the first battle he did come quite close to being taken out. And then there was also a long-range marksman with a rifle who was picking off individual units every couple of rounds, without fail. And so what they were able to then do was use these wildcards as the heroes, as the support for their standard units, and they were able to boost them with various bonuses. They were able to hinder the enemy with various spells and taunt and intimidate and so on. And as a sort of hybrid, as a small unit skirmish game, as an individual's skirmish game, it worked brilliantly, and it worked really well. So I'm over the moon with how that went. Now the experienced players, indeed all the players, suggested various little tweaks to the rules and little clarifications on actually you should probably only be allowed to do this if, and so on. So they are, as I speak, being incorporated into the rule set, which can now be finally written and then polished and rewritten and so on, so that when the Kickstarter money comes through in a couple of weeks' time, I can send out playable rules to everyone. They won't have the images in, they may need some rearrangement, they may need some sort of examples to be done, but they will be playable, and you can start fighting those battles yourself. So that's it for today. If you haven't already backed the Kickstarter and you think this would work for you, do go and back it. You don't need the Crown and Dragon RPG rulebook, but you do need the Savage Worlds rulebook, although that's not particularly expensive to get as a PDF only version. And if you already know the Savage Worlds rules, you're fine. If you don't, the basics are quite easy to pick up. So thank you very much, and until next time, good game.